Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd. Sit down. Don't get comfortable. The chair is hard for a reason. We are not here to relax. We are not here to offer you life hacks or productivity tips or 5 steps to a better morning routine. If you want that, go elsewhere. We are here to conduct an autopsy on the modern condition. We are here to drag the source material into the light and interrogate it until it confesses. Today, the file on the metal table is titled 247, Light Capitalism and the Ends of Sleep. The author is the cultural theorist Jonathan Crary. I've read the file. I've read the evidence. And looking at the premise of this deep dive, I have to admit, my initial reaction is skepticism bordering on contempt.
You are always skeptical, which is why we are here. But contempt, that is a strong opening position.
Is it? Look at where we are. We are living in the apex of human technological achievement. We have conquered distance. We have conquered darkness. We have access to the sum of human knowledge in our pockets. And yet the central complaint of this text seems to be that we are tired. Is that it? Is this just a sophisticated academic whine about insomnia? Is sleep not fundamentally a biological inefficiency, a flaw in the hardware? A waste of time that we are finally, thankfully, on the verge of patching out? Why should we mourn the loss of downtime when we have gained the world?
You are looking at the symptom and calling it the cure. That is the first mistake. To dismiss this as a complaint about being tired is to miss the terrifying architecture being described in these pages. This text is not a critique of technology. It is a report from a war zone. Crary is not describing a world of convenience. He is describing a state of emergency that has been declared permanent. When you speak of patching out sleep, you are adopting the exact language of the aggressor.
Aggressor. That's a strong word.
It's the right word. The concept of 247 presented here is not about the local convenience store being open so you can buy milk at 3 a.m. It is about a time without time. It is a zone of insensibility. It is a glare, a relentless, unceasing illumination that does not allow you to see, but rather blinds you to your own dispossession.
Dispossession. That is a loaded term. It implies theft. It implies that something which belongs to us is being taken away against our will. But I want to test that allegation. If there is a war on sleep, who are the combatants? Who is firing the shots? Because from where I sit, it looks like people are voluntarily staying awake. We choose the screen. We choose the late night scroll. We choose the productivity hack. We are willing collaborators.
Are we? Or have the conditions been created where collaboration is the only viable form of survival?
Let's see. The source material starts somewhere else entirely.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with a teenager on a smartphone. It starts with a bird, the white-crowned sparrow. Why on earth does a critique of late capitalism and global economics begin with ornithology?
It begins with the sparrow because the sparrow possesses a capability that the military-industrial complex envies. The white-crowned sparrow, Zonotrichia leucophorus, during its migration from Alaska to Mexico, has the biological capacity to stay awake for up to 7 days straight.
7 days.
7 days. Flying by night, foraging by day, navigating complex geography, all without any measurable cognitive decline. It does not sleep. It functions. It is a biological machine of pure duration.
Impressive for a bird, truly. But again, why does the U.S. Defense Department care? The source mentions massive government funding pouring into the study of this creature. Is this just curiosity? Is the Pentagon suddenly interested in bird watching? Are we trying to save the migratory paths?
You know the answer to that? The military does not fund curiosity. It funds dominance. The Defense Department isn't studying the sparrow to protect it. They're studying it to reverse engineer it.
Reverse engineer a bird.
To be precise, they want to reverse engineer its sleeplessness. The objective, as explicitly stated in the source analysis, is to discover the neurochemical mechanism that allows the bird to bypass the need for rest. The goal is to transfer that mechanism to a human subject. They are looking to create the sleepless soldier.
The sleepless soldier. A combatant who can fight for 168 hours without fatigue. Strategically, that is the ultimate weapon. If your enemy has to sleep for 8 hours and you don't, you win the war before a shot is fired. It changes the fundamental mathematics of conflict. You don't need more troops. You just need troops that never stop.
Exactly. It treats the human body as hardware. It assumes that the need for sleep is a bug, a systemic error that can be patched out with the right update. But this is Doctorates of the Absurd, and we look for the glitch in the system. The military objective is to impose a machinic model of duration onto the human body. They want a human that runs like a tank engine. Continuous. Unbreaking.
But does it stop at the soldier? Because military tech always trickles down. We're speaking on the internet, which was a DARPA project. We use GPS, which was a military project. The jet engine, the microwave.
It never stops at the soldier. That is the historical rule of technology. The source makes a chilling prediction here. The machinic model of duration will inevitably bleed from the battlefield into the marketplace. The sleepless soldier is merely the prototype for the sleepless worker, and eventually the sleepless consumer.
So the argument is that once the technology exists to reduce sleep, the market will demand that we use it. Not suggest, not offer, but demand.
Precisely. Imagine a pharmaceutical intervention, a pill, a treatment, a genetic tweak that allows you to function perfectly on 2 hours of sleep a day. Initially, it will be marketed as a lifestyle option, a form of liberation. Unlock your potential. Add 6 hours to your day. Finally, you can write that novel and work your full-time job. It will be sold as freedom.
I can see the ad campaigns now. Sleep is for the past. Don't blink. Seize the night. It's very seductive.
Of course it is. But in a hyper-competitive global marketplace, what starts as an option quickly becomes a necessity for survival. If your colleague takes the treatment and can work 20 hours a day and you refuse because you want to dream, you are obsolete, you are inefficient, you are fired.
So the freedom to choose becomes a coercion.
The human body is being treated as hardware that requires a patch to fix the bug of needing rest. The freedom to not sleep becomes the obligation to not sleep.
That is a terrifying pivot. You're saying the market will eventually view sleep as a weakness to be eradicated in the workforce. But let's look at the environment this soldier worker inhabits. The source uses the term 247 as a proper noun, almost like a place, the architecture of 247. I want to challenge the inherent negativity here. What is so wrong with 247 access? If I can bank at midnight or buy a book at 4:00 a.m. or talk to a friend in Tokyo whenever I want, isn't that liberation? Isn't that humanity triumphing over the arbitrary constraints of the sun? Why should we be slaves to the rotation of the planet? Why is the sun the boss of me?
Liberation, or the annihilation of rhythm. The source argues that 247 is not an extension of time, it is the wreckage of the day. When you eliminate the distinction between day and night, light and dark, action and repose, you are not creating more time. You are creating a time of indifference.
Indifference. Explain that. How can time be indifferent?
In a 247 world, no moment is qualitatively different from any other moment. Tuesday at 2:40 p.m. is identical to Sunday at 3 a.m. The markets are open, the servers are running, the notifications are pinging, the lights are on. It creates a flat, homogeneous texture of reality. It's like a low, constant hum that never changes pitch.
A hum. I see. It removes the peaks and valleys, the cycles of activity and rest.
It removes the very texture of life. Crary uses a powerful metaphor here. He compares it to a bank of floodlights being switched on during a sudden emergency.
Okay, let's unpack this floodlight metaphor. Usually floodlights are for safety. They clarify things. If a mine collapses or a dam breaks, you turn on the floodlights.
Exactly. They clarify things in a crisis. If there's a disaster, you turn on the floodlights to manage the emergency. You banish the shadows so you can work the problem. But the horror of the 247 world is that the floodlights are turned on, and then no one ever turns them off. The emergency becomes the permanent condition.
So we're living in a perpetual state of crisis management.
They are living in a state of high alert hypervisibility that never recedes. There is no shadow, there is no pause. And when you live under a glare that intense, you lose the texture of life. You lose the ability to dream, literally and metaphorically. It blinds you to the fact that you are exhausted.
It blinds you by being too bright. That's the paradox.
It creates a world without nuance. Everything is exposed. Everything is immediate. A world without secrets, without gestation, without the slow, quiet processes that happen in the dark.
You talk about exhaustion, and the source talks about this metaphorical glare, but I want to see the bodies. I want the data. Is this just a philosophical feeling, or is there actual evidence that this glare is physically eroding us? Because people claim to be busy, but are we actually sleeping less, or do we just feel busier?
The evidence is in the numbers, and it is staggering. The source lays out a timeline of dispossession. If you look at the early 20th century, before the full integration of electric light and the global market, the average person slept approximately 10 hours a night.
10 hours. That sounds like a coma by modern standards. I don't think I've slept 10 hours since I was an infant.
10 hours, that was the norm. It was the biological baseline. By a generation ago, that average had dropped to 8 hours. 8 hours became the new healthy standard.
The famous 8 hours. You need your 8 hours.
A standard we now treat as an aspirational luxury. Today, the average North American adult sleeps approximately 6.5 hours.
So we've lost nearly 4 hours of sleep per night in the span of 100 years. That is a massive chunk of biological time, a full third of our recommended rest. Just Gone.
We haven't lost it. It was taken. That is the distinction the expert speaker in me must insist upon. This isn't a lifestyle change. It isn't that we collectively decided we liked awakeness better. It is a systemic dispossession. It's an enclosure of our time, just like common lands were enclosed centuries ago. The old adage that we spend a third of our lives asleep is no longer true. It is a lie. That third has been invaded, colonized, and strip mined for attention.
Okay. This brings us to the why. This is the part that always fascinates me. The motive. Capitalism is usually rational, at least in its own brutal way. It wants productive workers. A tired worker is a bad worker. They make mistakes, they crash trucks, they write bad code, they get sick. So why would the system encourage this erosion of sleep? Wouldn't it be in capitalism's best interest to have us well-rested?
You are thinking like a 20th century factory owner. You are thinking about productivity in terms of making things. In that model, yes, a well-rested worker is better. But we are in late capitalism now. The logic has shifted. We are no longer just producers. We are primarily consumers and data points. The source identifies sleep as an incongruous anomaly. It is a scandal.
A scandal. Sleep is a scandal. That sounds absurd.
It is the scandal of the non-monetizable. Think about it. Sleep is an interval of time that is profoundly useless to the market. You cannot buy anything while you are asleep. You cannot watch an advertisement. You cannot generate data. You cannot labor. It creates incalculable losses in circulation time. To the logic of 247 capitalism, sleep is an insult. It is a barrier. It is the only remaining part of human life that has not been fully colonized.
The stunning, inconceivable reality is that nothing of value can be extracted from it. That's the quote, isn't it?
Yes, it creates a dead spot in the network, a black hole where capital cannot go. Unless, of course, you're buying pills to induce it. And that is the perverse irony the source highlights. We have destroyed the natural cycle of rest, creating a scarcity of sleep. And what does the market do with scarcity?
It monetizes it. It commodifies
It monetizes it. It sells the cure for the disease it caused.
Right. It's like knocking a man down and then selling him crutches.
Precisely. The source draws a parallel to water. For millennia, water was free. It was a common good. Then we polluted the public water supply or allowed it to crumble, and suddenly bottled water became a multi-billion-dollar industry. We have now done the same thing to time. We have polluted the night with glare and connectivity, creating chronic insomnia and anxiety, and now we sell sleep aids, apps, white noise machines, weighted blankets, and sedatives. We have created an insomniac economy where you have to pay a toll to re-enter the state of rest that was once your birthright.
That is a bleak picture. The idea that sleep is the unprofitable interval. But I want to pivot to the aesthetic of this world. The source talks about the loss of shadows and references Andrei Tarkovsky's film Solaris. Now, Solaris is a heavy film. It's about a space station orbiting a sentient ocean. It's slow, it's contemplative. Why bring a Soviet sci-fi film into a discussion about global economics?
Because Solaris is the perfect allegory for the 247 environment. In the film, the scientists are on a station where there is permanent illumination. No day, no night. Just the hum of the machine and the glare of the lights. And what happens to them? They suffer from chronic insomnia. But more importantly, reality begins to break down. They start seeing specters. The past comes back to haunt them physically.
So the argument is that without the shadows, without the downtime of the night, we lose our grip on reality. The subconscious starts to bleed into the conscious world.
We lose the specters, yes, but in a different way. A healthy world has shadows. It has ghosts. It has memories. A fully illuminated world, 247 world, allows for no mystery. Everything is visible, everything is quantifiable, everything is on. The source argues that this brightness is fraudulent. It promises that we can see everything, but it actually creates a zone of insensibility. It's a paradox. The brighter the light, the less we actually see. We become amnesiacs. We live in a perpetual now with no sense of history and no sense of a future.
This sounds like a shift in how power operates. We used to talk about power as a prison, the panopticon, the guard in the tower watching the prisoners. But this feels different. It feels ambient. The source mentions a shift from Michel Foucault to Gilles Deleuze, from disciplinary societies to societies of control. Now, for the listener who hasn't spent 5 years in a philosophy doctoral program, we need to break that down. This is crucial to understanding the trap we are in. What is the difference between discipline and control?
It is the difference between a mold and a modulation. Let's look at Foucault's disciplinary society, the 19th and early 20th century. Power was about confinement. It was spatial. You were in the school, then you were in the factory, then you were in the hospital, then you were in the prison. You were always inside a box, and the box had rules. There were walls.
You moved from one box to another, And when you're in the box, you obeyed the rules of the box.
Yeah.
Very rigid, structured existence.
Correct. But crucially, when you moved between the boxes, you were in a gap. When the worker left the factory to go home, he was briefly unsupervised. He was in the street. He was in the shadows. There were moments of non-surveillance. But Deleuze argued that we have moved beyond the box. We are now in a society of control. In a control society, there are no walls.
It's an open field.
It's an open field. You are free to move. You are free to go outside. You are free to travel. But the control travels with you. It's a modulation, constantly adjusting. It's like an electronic ankle bracelet for the entire population.
The smartphone, the smartwatch, the transponder, the credit card swipe.
The smartphone, the credit card, the GPS tracker, the social media profile. In a control society, there are no gaps. There are no intervals. The tracking is continuous. It is unbounded. It operates 247. In the old system, the boss watched you while you were on the factory floor. In the new system, the algorithm watches you while you are in bed. It knows when you fall asleep. It knows if you dream.
That is the terror of it. The device in your pocket dissolves the separation between work, leisure, and private life. You are never off the clock because the clock is now attached to your body. There's no escape.
And this is why the glare is not just about light bulbs. It is about data. It's about the impossibility of hiding. In a disciplinary society, you could hide in the cracks. In a control society, there are no cracks. Everything is smooth. Everything is recorded.
That is the glare we were talking about, the digital glare. And this leads to something that I found particularly disturbing in the source material, the language we use to describe ourselves in this system. There is a quote from a future CEO of Google back in the late 90s where he talks about the gap between human biology and data. He says the goal is to overcome the pause. And then there's that term, that awful grotesque term the industry uses for us.
Eyeballs.
Yes, eyeballs. Not people, not viewers, not citizens, eyeballs. We need to capture more eyeballs. We are competing for eyeballs. It sounds like something from a horror movie.
It is a horrific reduction. The source analyzes this term brilliantly. When they say eyeballs, they're dislodging the eye from the human being. They are not interested in you, the person. They are interested in the physiological organ that registers light. They are reducing vision to a motor activity. The eye does not exist to see the world, to appreciate beauty, or to reflect on a sunset. The eye exists only to react, to click, to scroll, to process a stimulus. It becomes a physiological component in a machine circuit.
It's the eye of a reptile. React, snap, consume. React, snap, consume. It completely bypasses the brain, the mind, the soul, whatever you want to call the part of us that thinks and feels and reflects.
Precisely. And this leads to the reification of the self. Reification means turning something into a thing. We start to rebuild ourselves to fit the machine. We invent a self-understanding that optimizes us for data processing. We start to get anxious if we aren't connected. We feel like we don't exist if we aren't generating data. We curate our lives not to be lived, but to be viewed.
We are engaging in our own objectification. We are voluntarily turning ourselves into components. We polish our profiles. We manage our personal brand. We become things for others to consume.
The source points out a tragic irony here. As the actual biosphere, the planet, the trees, the animals is dying, as we face biocide on an unprecedented scale, we are dissociating from it. We are transferring our dependency to the mechanosphere of global capitalism. We identify more with our electronic avatars than our fragile biological bodies.
Because the avatar is better. The avatar doesn't get tired. The avatar doesn't age. The avatar doesn't get sick. The avatar doesn't need to sleep. The avatar is compatible with the 24/7 world. Our biological bodies are shameful because they are weak. They need rest. They are inefficient.
Exactly. The source notes that in the neoliberal paradigm, sleeping is for losers. It is an admission of defeat. If you are sleeping, you are not grinding, you are not optimizing, you are not producing content, you are failing to be a good component.
Sleeping is for losers.
Yeah.
It's the mantra of the hustle culture. It's everywhere. But this brings us to the climax of the argument and where I want to push you the hardest. If sleep is weakness, if sleep is a waste, if sleep is a scandal, why defend it? Why not just accelerate? Why not take the pill, become the sleepless soldier, and merge with the machine? If the machine is so efficient, why not join it? What is the value of the pause? What are we really protecting here?
Because sleep requires a radical act of trust. This is the beautiful, fragile core of the book. To sleep is to abandon ourselves to the care of others. Think about what happens when you fall asleep. You become unconscious. You are helpless. You cannot defend yourself. In a pre-modern world, or even a sane modern world, sleeping implies a community. It implies that someone else is watching the fire. Someone else is guarding the door. Someone else is keeping the tribe safe.
So sleep creates a social bond. It necessitates protection. It says, I trust you not to kill me while I am vulnerable. It's the ultimate act of social faith.
Exactly. But the 247 world is a world without care. It is a world of isolated, vigilant units. Everyone is awake. Everyone is guarding their own assets. Everyone is competing. To sleep in such a world is dangerous. But it is also the only act of resistance left.
Resistance. You're saying that taking a nap is a political act, that going to bed is a revolution. That seems a bit much.
In a world that demands total availability, the refusal to be available is revolutionary. Yes, sleep is an uncompromising interruption. It is the only barrier standing between humanity and full integration into the machine. By simply sleeping, you are proving that you are not a machine. You are proving that you are biological, that you are cyclical, that you are tied to the earth and the sun. It is a glitch in the system. When you sleep, you are useless to capital. And in being useless, you are free.
That is profoundly heavy. The idea that being useless is the highest form of freedom. It flips the whole script.
We are taught that our value comes from our utility, our productivity, our contribution. You are saying our humanity comes from our inutility, from our refusal to be useful 2004-7.
It is the only barrier left. It is the recurrence of awaiting. It is a pause that capitalism cannot digest. It jokes on sleep. It is the moment where the shallow self we construct for the day, the professional self, the online self, is unraveled. Sleep is where we meet the parts of ourselves that are not for sale. So where does this leave us? We've dissected the sparrow, the floodlights, the control society, the eyeballs. We're in the final stretch of this interrogation. What is the end game? If the erosion continues, if the stats go from 6.5 hours to 5 to 4, do we evolve? Do we break?
We do not evolve, we rot. The source offers a dark prophecy. It reflects on the zombie nature of the 204-7 subject, someone who is on but not alive. Nietzsche, quoting Socrates, spoke of the permanent daylight of reason. He meant it as an ideal, a world free from superstition and darkness. But Crary argues that this permanent daylight is actually a nightmare of total exhaustion, a desert of the real, illuminated by a sun that never sets.
A nightmare where the lights are always on. A civilization of zombies staring at screens, clicking, scrolling, never dreaming, never waking up, just processing.
Yes, and I want to leave you with this final provocation based on the source. We established that war-related innovations are inevitably assimilated into society. The internet, the jet engine, the GPS. If the sleepless soldier is the current goal of our most advanced research, then the sleepless human is the inevitable product on the shelf.
That is the thought that keeps me up at night. Literally, it's not just a product. It's a replacement, a new model of human that renders the old one obsolete.
It should keep you up. You have to ask yourself, you listening right now, you have to ask, are you awake right now because you want to be? Because you are inspired? Because you are alive? Or are you awake simply because the lights were never turned off?
The interrogation is over, but the glare remains.
And it is brighter than ever.
Doctorates of the absurd, class dismissed, go to sleep.
If you still can.